Welcome to my next video. Don't forget to like plus subscribe to follow more amazing stories. Tom sat in the patrol car, listening to the silent sounds of the night. This was a residential area on the outskirts of the city, where Tom often carried out his night patrols. He was an experienced police officer, proud of his mission to protect his community. But deep down, Tom carried heavy prejudices against people of color. To him, the difference in skin color seemed to be associated with crime and danger. When he saw Grace's car drive by, Tom immediately felt on alert. He didn't know much about the woman driving the car, but an uncomfortable feeling took over him. Without hesitation, he turned on the lights and signaled for her to stop. Grace was on her way home, feeling tired after a long day of work. She was a pregnant black woman, waiting for her first child to be born. When she saw the police lights, her heart began to beat faster, partly out of worry and partly out of unease. She had never had any trouble with the law, but thinking of the seemingly unfriendly police officer, she tried to stay calm, taking deep breaths to not affect her unborn child. Tom stepped out of his car and approached Grace's car. "License and registration?" he demanded coldly. Grace rolled down the window, smiling slightly as she handed her documents to Tom. "Here are my papers, sir," she replied, trying to keep her voice calm and polite. Tom looked at the documents, but his eyes didn't leave Grace's face. He didn't like the way she looked at him, and deep down, he felt challenged. "Where are you coming from? What were you doing in the city tonight?" Tom asked, his voice full of suspicion. Grace felt insulted. "I'm just coming from work and heading home, sir," she said, still trying to stay calm. But inside, she felt a deep sense of injustice. Why did she have to answer these unreasonable questions just because of her skin color? Tom stared at her, his eyes still cold and unfriendly. "I'm going to search your car," he declared without waiting for Grace's consent. Grace said nothing, but a feeling of anger rose inside her. She didn't want to cause trouble, but she couldn't accept being treated disrespectfully like this. "Do you have any reason to search my car?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. Tom remained silent, his eyes filled with contempt. "I'm a police officer, and I have the right to do so," he replied. Their exchange lasted a few more minutes with tense words and looks. Grace felt demeaned and deeply insulted, while Tom acted as if he were doing the right thing. Eventually, he allowed her to leave, but no apology or sympathy was offered. On her way home, Grace felt fear and anger welling up inside her. She promised herself she wouldn't let this matter pass easily. At home, Grace tiredly sat down on the couch, her hands still trembling after the tense encounter with the police officer. She recounted the entire incident to her husband, Marcus. Marcus was a loving husband who always cared for Grace. But when he heard what happened, he felt furious. "You didn't do anything wrong to deserve that kind of treatment," Marcus exclaimed, his eyes shining with anger. Grace gently shook her head, her eyes reflecting a hint of sadness. "I don't know. I just wanted to get home safely. I didn't want any trouble. But the way he treated me, I felt like I wasn't worthy of respect." Marcus held Grace's hand tightly, his voice soft but firm. "We can't let this go. You don't deserve to face injustice just because of your skin color. I will do everything to protect you and our child." The two of them sat together, feeling the injustice and determined to take action to seek justice. Grace looked at Marcus, her heart filled with gratitude for having a husband who always supported and was ready to protect her. She understood that this wasn't just her problem, but also something she wanted to stand up for, to protect her children and her community. Marcus was not only a loving family man but also respected in the community. He was a leader, a man of influence. However, he maintained a humble image and rarely appeared in public. He always wanted to protect the vulnerable but didn't want to use his power to force others. Grace knew that having Marcus by her side was a solid support, and he would always be ready to stand up for her. But today, facing the injustice his wife had endured, Marcus felt he needed to do more. "We will sue him," Grace, you are not alone. I will do everything I can to protect you and our child, Marcus said, his eyes resolute. A warm and secure feeling rose in Grace's heart. She knew she could rely on Marcus and face injustice without fear. Tom sat alone in the dark living room, the dim light from the desk lamp casting a faint glow on his face. Returning from his shift, he was still haunted by the encounter with Grace. A feeling of discomfort and frustration welled up inside him, but he couldn't clearly explain why. Tom looked out the window, where the darkness enveloped the scene outside. That darkness seemed to reflect what was happening within him. Sometimes, even he didn't understand himself. Memories from his childhood suddenly resurfaced, taking him back to the painful experiences he had tried to bury. Those days had shaped who he was today, creating a Tom filled with defensiveness and suspicion. When Tom was young, his family lived in what was considered the dangerous area of the city. Most of his neighbors were people of color, and he had witnessed many fights, even crimes, occurring right on the street where he grew up. To Tom, all those images became part of his haunting memories, and he began to form the idea that people of color were the cause of the instability in his life. Once, Tom remembered, he was attacked by a group of black teenagers on his way home from school. They snatched his school bag and left him with a small scar on his forehead. Tom was just a child back then, and the fear and hurt haunted him for years. He couldn't tell anyone about it. He couldn't ask for help. Those old wounds, though healed, left behind lingering fear and resentment. As Tom grew older, he kept telling himself that he had to be stronger, that he had to become someone who protected order. But the pain from his past had caused him to form deep prejudices against people of color, leading to unconscious discriminatory actions that he wasn't even aware of. These prejudices were not the result of reason but of indelible memories that grew thicker with time. That night, in the living room, Tom sat immersed in his dark thoughts. He realized he was sinking into a spiral of hatred and obsession but didn't have the courage to find out the real cause behind them. Grace sat in her small room, looking at the complaint papers spread out in front of her. For the first time in her life, she felt she had to stand up and fight not just for herself but also for the child she was carrying. She couldn't let her child grow up in a society where people were treated unfairly just because of their skin color. Marcus sat beside her, always supporting her, his eyes filled with pride and unconditional love for Grace. "You're doing the right thing, Grace," he said, holding her hand. "We can't stay silent while injustice continues to exist. You're a strong woman, and I know our child will be proud of what their mother has done." Grace gave a weak smile, but her heart was full of determination. She picked up the pen and began writing the entire story, from the moment Tom stopped her car to when he showed unprovoked hostility. Every line she wrote carried with it suppressed emotions. She detailed Tom's cold gaze, how he treated her as if she were a criminal, and the fear she had to suppress to avoid affecting the health of her unborn child. When she filed the complaint, Grace encountered obstacles from the police. They deliberately delayed, asking questions that made her feel as if she was being interrogated. But Marcus was always by her side, encouraging and motivating her. Every time she faced difficulty, Grace remembered why she started this journey: to protect her child and give them a better future. In the days following the notification about the complaint, Tom felt immense pressure from all sides. His colleagues started whispering behind his back, their eyes glancing at him with suspicion and curiosity. Deep inside, Tom felt betrayed. He wondered how he, someone who had dedicated years to protecting the community, had become the one being condemned. "She can't do this," Tom muttered, feeling his anger rising. To him, stopping Grace's car was just a routine job, nothing wrong at all. He believed he had acted appropriately, but now he had to face questioning from his superiors. Tom struggled to deal with his emotions. His prejudices were deeply ingrained, and every time he recalled the encounter with Grace, he felt enraged. His superiors required him to attend a diversity and equity training program to ease the conflicts raised in the complaint. But Tom saw it only as an insult, an unfair punishment for what he believed was right. Day by day, the work pressure became more intense. Tom began to feel lonely, as if everyone was against him. He didn't realize that it was the hatred and prejudice within him that were causing him to lose control. Marcus took the initiative to contact Tom and arranged to meet him at a small cafe. This wasn't an official meeting or confrontation. Marcus just wanted to talk to see if they could resolve the issue more gently. When he entered the cafe, Tom sat down with a guarded attitude, his eyes filled with suspicion and wariness. Marcus looked at Tom, his gaze calm and forgiving, showing no signs of anger or hostility. "I'm not here to cause trouble or make things difficult for you," Marcus began, his voice deep and warm. "I just want you to understand how my wife felt that night. She's pregnant and was already stressed. And the way you treated her hurt her deeply." Tom was confused but tried to maintain his cold demeanor. He had never thought his actions could cause such deep harm. Marcus told him about his family's life, about the challenges that people of color face every day in this society. Marcus spoke gently, without blaming, simply sharing his perspective. "You know, we just want to live a normal life, like everyone else," Marcus said, looking directly at Tom, his eyes sincere and understanding. "But every day, we face prejudice and injustice, from the smallest things to experiences like your encounter with Grace." Tom felt an unfamiliar feeling inside. He began to think about everything differently, starting to see the injustice he had unconsciously caused. Marcus's words were like a mirror reflecting back at him, showing him a man whose unconscious biases had created a barrier between himself and the world around him. Marcus didn't force Tom to change, but his presence left thoughts in Tom that he couldn't ignore. Tom began to realize that sometimes the actions he thought were right could cause more harm than he had imagined. After the meeting with Marcus, Tom returned home with a chaotic mind. Marcus's words echoed in his head, making him reflect deeply on his past. That night, Tom couldn't sleep, as memories of painful experiences and the prejudices he had faced in life kept resurfacing in his mind. Tom remembered the difficult days of his childhood. His father was a very strict man, teaching him that life was never fair and that one had to be strong to protect oneself. His mother, a gentle woman, always taught him about compassion, but she was pressured by the prejudices around them and the hurts from society. As Tom grew up, he gradually forgot his mother's teachings and instead adopted his father's rigidity and prejudices. That night, Tom sat with his deep emotions. He realized that the hatred he carried inside was not because of others, but from the wounds and hurt he had never addressed. Tom began to see clearly that he had used prejudice as a protective shell to cover up unhealed pains. While Tom was grappling with his thoughts, Grace was determined not to let her child grow up in an unjust world. She and Marcus discussed how they would educate their child after birth, hoping that the baby wouldn't have to endure the pain that their family had faced. Grace spent a lot of time preparing for the arrival of her baby. She wrote a letter to her child, recounting the story she had gone through, hoping that when they grew up, they would understand her perseverance and courage. In the letter, she promised to give all her love and protection to her child and to teach them that, no matter how unfair society may be, we must still be resilient and kind. Grace believed that the power of love could change the world. She also began planning community activities, working with others to raise awareness about injustice and prejudice. She hoped that through her actions, future generations would have the opportunity to live in a fair and equal society. After spending nights reflecting on his life and past, Tom began to change. He realized that his prejudices not only hurt others but also made him lonely and caused him to lose many precious things in life. Tom started learning more about the Black community, reading books and materials about their history. He wanted to understand more deeply what Marcus and Grace had gone through. He felt as though he was stepping into a new world, where his prejudices gradually faded and were replaced by understanding. Each day, Tom found himself changing a little. He began to look at those around him with more empathy, realizing that no one deserved to be judged based on appearance or origin. This change did not come easily, but it was a journey that Tom was willing to undertake to become a better person. Determined to change, Tom enrolled in diversity and equity training organized by the police department. First, he felt awkward and confused about facing people he once held prejudices against. But gradually, he realized that this was an opportunity for him to make peace with his past. During the training sessions, Tom heard many touching stories from people who had been treated unfairly. He began to understand that everyone has their own unique experiences, and no two people are the same. He felt relieved, as if liberated, as he gradually let go of his prejudice and hatred. Tom also participated in community activities, where he had the chance to meet and connect with people he had previously ignored. These small but meaningful actions helped Tom feel more at peace and at ease. He realized that real change begins with acknowledging one's mistakes and being willing to make amends. After months of attending training programs and participating in social activities, Tom decided to take the next important step on his journey, to face Grace and Marcus directly and sincerely apologize to them. The meeting was arranged in a quiet cafe where all three felt comfortable. When he met Grace and Marcus again, Tom felt like a different person. In the past, he would never have imagined sitting in front of a black person to express regret. But today, he knew that if he didn't do this, he would never truly atone. Tom began to speak, his voice low and sincere. "Grace, Marcus, I've thought a lot about what happened, about the way I treated you both. I've realized that my actions not only caused harm but also stemmed from the wrong prejudices I carried. Today, I'm here to apologize, not just for what I did to you, but for all the prejudices I've carried throughout my life." Grace listened, her gaze gentle but not entirely free of caution. She was moved by Tom's sincerity, but the pain he had caused still lingered. She looked at Marcus, her steady emotional anchor, and he nodded in agreement. Marcus continued, "Tom, I understand that everyone can make mistakes. What's important is that you've recognized that and want to change. We won't forget what happened, but we believe in forgiveness and compassion. If you truly want to change, we will support you." The conversation lasted for hours. Tom shared more about his past, about the pains he had experienced, and the reasons he had become so prejudiced. Grace and Marcus listened with compassion, willing to open their hearts to understand Tom better. A connection slowly began to form between them through honest and heartfelt conversations. In the end, Tom felt that he was no longer alone on his journey of change. Tom's transformation not only helped him improve his personal relationships but also opened up new opportunities in his career. Seeing his sincerity and dedication, the leadership trusted him and gave him greater responsibilities within the police department. One day, Tom was promoted to a managerial position, where he could oversee and train new recruits. Tom decided to bring the lessons he had learned into his work. He began organizing regular training sessions for the entire team, focusing on topics such as diversity awareness, communication skills, and handling situations with compassion. In each session, Tom did not hesitate to share his own story, his mistakes, and the journey of change he had undergone. He hoped that through his story, his colleagues would recognize the importance of compassion and fairness. One major turning point was when Tom participated in an international conference on equality and justice. There, he was invited to speak and share about his journey of change. Tom recounted the story with Grace and Marcus, about his inner struggle and the help of two black friends he once looked down on. His sincere words touched the hearts of many people. Some even came to meet him after the conference, expressing their admiration and gratitude for his courage in admitting his mistakes. Tom felt true joy in his heart. He knew that with these changes, he had found the true meaning of life. The lessons from life and the forgiveness of Grace and Marcus had helped him become a better person, a trustworthy and compassionate leader. The bond between Tom, Grace, and Marcus grew stronger over time. Together, the three of them participated in community projects to promote equality and raise awareness about eliminating prejudice. They organized various activities within the community, such as public discussions, educational workshops on diversity, and charitable events. One of the special events they organized was Community Unity Day. They invited people from different backgrounds and ethnicities to come together, learn from one another, and share life experiences. During the event, Tom once again had the opportunity to share his story, while Grace and Marcus also talked about their journey, a journey that wasn't easy but was filled with love and perseverance. The event concluded with an outdoor concert, where everyone held hands and sang songs about peace and unity. Tom felt an indescribable happiness. Looking around, he saw people of all races and backgrounds smiling at one another, working together to build a community without barriers or prejudice. Events like this not only helped bring the community closer but also inspired those around them, especially the younger generation. Tom, Grace, and Marcus hoped that through these small but meaningful actions, they could contribute to building a better society. Years passed, and Tom became a respected and admired figure in the community. He was no longer the rigid and prejudiced police officer he once was. He had become a symbol of change and redemption. Tom, Grace, and Marcus became close friends, and their relationship was a living testament to the power of compassion and unity. At a recognition ceremony, Tom was awarded for his outstanding achievements in promoting equality and eliminating prejudice. During his acceptance speech, Tom was filled with emotion. He recounted his story, spoke about the valuable lessons he learned from Grace and Marcus, and expressed his gratitude for the opportunity to change. When we are willing to admit our mistakes and learn from those around us, we can create a better society. I once lived in hatred and prejudice, but thanks to the compassion of those I once looked down on, I was given the chance to change, Tom said, his voice choked with emotion. After his speech, he walked over to Grace and Marcus, and they embraced amidst the applause of everyone. It was a deeply moving moment, a symbol of healing and hope for the future. Their lives continued in happiness and peace. Tom, Grace, and Marcus continued working together, organizing more community activities, inspiring others, and building a united community. They knew that this path would never be easy, but with compassion, unity, and love, they could overcome any challenge. In the end, the story of Tom, Grace, and Marcus was not just about personal transformation but also a message about the power of love, kindness, and forgiveness. Though life has many challenges, with love and empathy, people can overcome obstacles and create a better world.